The Cleveland Browns are through 2 weeks of preseason games at this point, currently in Philadelphia, prepping with joint practices with the Philadelphia Eagles with a game Thursday night. We are going to try to narrow down the offensive side of the roster, the defensive side of the roster, in hopes of who's going to make the final 53, and some reports from early in Philly, day one, Monday, and not so good. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things dog pound LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. Jump in, join the everyday crowd. Make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Locked On Browns, of course, always available, always free wherever you get your podcast. Browns currently in Philadelphia. Practice just ended. First joint practice between the Browns and the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to get to that in segment 3. It's a little different here today. There wasn't much video to be had. So basically just got to take everything from social media and kind of waiting a little bit here till maybe we get a little more, from the coaches about the day. First of all, first segment, we're going to try to narrow down here, talk a little bit about where the Browns are in regards to narrowing this roster down to the final 53, which will obviously, of course, take place September 10th as the Cleveland Browns open up the 2023 season against the Cincinnati Bengals. Here's what I think we know to this point. Quarterback position, obviously we know Deshaun Watson, year 2 here. Everybody hoping just see the resurgence, the relighting of the lamp of this once outstanding player in the NFL, 20-month hiatus. Look, I mean, we can talk about every guy on this roster. There's no more important player on the Cleveland Browns roster in 2023 than Deshaun Watson. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is absolutely going to make this roster. And if you notice where I mentioned him, everybody kind of gets the theme here that I've been going with the last week or so, maybe even the last 2 weeks, or hell, even since he was drafted. Josh Dobbs is going to make this team. Josh Dobbs, I think he's kind of here in the same, way and respect, where you have somebody that Deshaun Watson is close with, a confidant, if you will. And this is also somebody that's going to help and work with Dorian Thompson-Robinson as far as getting him ready for what, for at least first time in Cleveland, is ultimately going to be, learning how to be a backup. Kid was obviously a 5-star, 4-star recruit, 5-star recruit, growing up in Nevada, goes to UCLA, was a starting quarterback for 4 seasons. There is, some effort. It takes some things to learn how to be a backup quarterback in the NFL. Your 3 quarterbacks for the Cleveland Browns: Deshaun Watson, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, of course, Josh Dobbs. The running back position, I think it's clear at the top. Gets a little murky when we get to the bottom. Of course, Nick Chubb. God knows when we'll see Nick Chubb at all this summer. If they don't want to give him a carry or a touch this summer in the preseason, I am more than okay with that. Jerome Ford's going to make this roster one way or another. Jerome Ford currently nursing his hamstring injury, taking it week by week. So the last time we were told this tells me we're probably due for Coach Stefanski, maybe for an update here anytime soon as to where Jerome Ford currently is with that hamstring injury. For right now, Demetrius Felton's going to make this roster. And if you had told me this a month ago, and if we suggested this a month ago, I would have told you, you were crazy. But you're talking about a guy who has punt return ability, kick return ability, obviously can run the ball out of the backfield, can catch the ball out of the backfield, can play slot receiver, and a great point from John Costco yesterday in yesterday's episode. If you did not check that out, make sure you do. That if you're doing all this stuff with Elijah Moore, the special sauce, if you will, the jet motion, the jet sweeps, you need somebody else who can emulate that, replicate that. If God forbid Elijah Moore is out for a series, a down, a week, let's stop it. We won't say any more from there. So that brings Demetrius Felton into the fold here. Of course, Jordan Wilkins signed. That puts him in a battle with Hassan Hall. I don't think John Kelly is in this battle as far as the Browns' 4th running back. They're going to keep 4 running backs. Obviously, no fullback anymore for the Cleveland Browns system. So you have this battle between Wilkins, Hassan Hall, and possibly door number 3. Any type of other veteran or any type of other free agent the Browns sign. So I feel pretty good with 3 out of 4 there. Wide receiver position, we know Amari Cooper is going to make this team. Amari Cooper had a really, really nice day down in Philadelphia today. Donovan Peoples-Jones, Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, of course, David Bell. There is 5. This group could go 7 deep. due to the fact that I'm not sure if you're going to keep 10 offensive linemen. You're only going to keep 3 tight ends. You only have 4 running backs. But I think right now you have a battle probably for that 6th spot. But Austin Watkins is playing, and Austin Watkins is contributing, and he's contributing at a very high level. We have not seen Jakeem Grant. We have not seen Jalen Darden. Marquise Goodwin is certainly going through his health issues. So the Browns have some things to deal with here. But right now, Austin Watkins is basically saying to everybody, look, if nobody else wants this gig, I will be glad to take it, and credit to him because, through 2 games, he's been the Browns' best receiving option. He's been the most consistent wide receiver through 2 preseason games. Does help him. Obviously, he comes over from the XFL where he didn't have a long offseason like many of the Browns players, but still an advantage, a door opening, and a guy stepping up, taking it. Tight end, this is simple. Obviously, it's David Njoku. It is Jordan Akins. It is Harrison Bryant. That's it. That is your wide receiver room going into week 1 for the Cleveland Browns. The other guys have done a nice job here, but there just isn't room for them. Offensive line, obviously, we know Jedrick Wills, Joe Bitonio, Ethan Posick, Wyatt Teller, and Jack Conklin. More on Jack Conklin in a little bit. There's your starting 5, James Hudson. And with the news today that the Browns, and I don't know why, this one baffles me and almost aggravates me. DeJuan Jones has been an absolute beast to this point on the right side. And I saw some people, you don't always take a right tackle. Jedrick Wills is a guy playing left tackle, and he played right tackle in college, so I don't want to hear it. DeJuan Jones has been so impressive on the right side right now. You're foolish to not give him some reps on the left side to see if that is a place that he can possibly play. But Hudson, DeJuan Jones, obviously both in. Luke Whippler definitely going to be in. Michael Dunn is going to be in as your reserve guard. Then it gets to whether or not that is 9. So you're going to keep 10. If you're going to keep 10, you're talking about players, certainly, you're talking about a player, of course, maybe Tyrone Wheatley Jr., who's looked really good. As he's been around, and all of a sudden now he's getting some playing time, and his his father was an NFL running back, so the fact that he's got pretty good feet shouldn't surprise anybody. Nick Harris, we'll see the way it works out with him. Nick Harris actually does have some guard experience. It wasn't great, but Nick Harris does have some guard experience. But that's 9. If the Browns go 10, there's 2 possible guys you could think of that would be in contention for that 10th and final spot in the offensive line room. Probably not going to dress, but would have the comfort of knowing you're getting a on the roster NFL salary in the 2023 season. We're going to get back. We'll talk a little bit about the defense here. Your latest Locked On Browns. Appreciate everybody for being along for the ride. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So with draft prep underway for the upcoming season, let's see who Vinny has picked out for us on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. If you're looking for a safe quarterback to take as a starter late after you wait on the position, then you can ride with the Cowboys' Dak Prescott, who, when healthy and getting enough volume, always comes through as a great fit in fantasy lineups. Prescott will be more efficient in the new offense under Mike McCarthy, and his weapons have been rebooted more to his liking with Brandon Cooks. Dallas won't be nearly as run-heavy, restoring Prescott's solid numbers through the air. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows the championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. With eBay Guaranteed Fit and over 122 million parts and accessories for your vehicle right at your fingertips, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Air filters, brakes, batteries, taillights, alternators, shocks, struts, you name it, eBay Motors has it. And they'll make sure it's the right fit for your car, because eBay Guaranteed Fit helps you understand exactly what part you need for your vehicle the first time. So go forth, switch gears, crank the AC, and say goodbye to sweating if your ride needs a little fixing up. Because now you know you'll always be set up for success from the get-go. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, everything your vehicle is calling for is just a click away. For the parts and accessories that fit your vehicle, just look for the green check. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Rolling on here, your latest Locked On Browns, your host, Jeff Lloyd. As always, thank everybody for making Locked On Browns their first listen. Join the everyday crowd, and the best way to do that is to subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel, and of course, Locked On Browns Again, it's always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. Now, defensively, and now this is where it's going to get a little interesting at the defensive end position. Obviously, 2 players currently hurt. If Alex Wright, in order to go to an IR, he's got to make the final 53, then go to an IR. Same thing obviously applies to Isiah Thomas. So it's going to be interesting because this could be one where they keep 5, they could keep 6. I'm not concerned that these players are injured right now, because I think this group is deep enough to begin the season. And it'll be nice to start rotating in some extra guys when they do eventually come back. So obviously, of course, Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, who's, what we've seen him to this point, drew the safety, Friday night, was, a menace to the today, along with Obo Onkarakwo. These guys all, along with Myles, had great days today, and we'll get to Myles here a little bit in a little bit. Isaiah McGuire will absolutely, the way it stands now, make this roster final 53. That gives you Alex Wright as number 5. And I know the Browns do like Isiah Thomas, and I'm not exactly sure what their overall intentions were as far as being able to keep him or trying to stash him. But if the Browns want to keep Isiah Thomas around, he's going to have to make the final 53. And then they can IR him from there. So that gives you 6, most likely, at the defensive end position. On the interior, this is where it's a little bit interesting. Look, Dalvin Tomlinson, obviously set to go. Shelby Harris took to the practice field today. Not exactly sure totally what Shelby Harris did, but obviously now here new, just signed over the weekend. I'm sorry, not signed Thursday, integrating himself into the Cleveland Browns system. Sione Ika is going to make this roster. Jordan Elliott, yes, the money's guaranteed. I get it. Jordan Elliott is not improving. Jordan Elliott is the same player he's been now going into his 4th season here with the Browns. If they think the guaranteed money keeps him, I guess. But, if they tell me they want to move on from Jordan Elliott, it's probably something I'm okay with. Tristan Hill, it's been difficult, obviously, with the hand injury. Been a spectator most of the summer here. This is a guy the Browns, brought in, hoping to basically, get a guy to maybe get, bring a resurgency to his career. And we'll see for Tristan Hill. But right now, he's not doing himself, any favors. It's really, really difficult, to make the club from the tub. Maurice Hurst, week 1 wasn't so good. Week 2 was better. I really, really hope they could find a way to make this work out. And maybe Maurice Hurst is a guy that gets cut in those final cut downs in the Browns once they can IR an Alex Wright or maybe an Isiah Thomas, find a way to bring him back. There's always been magic. There's always been talent in that body, even though, obviously it's just not really worked out for him. And he really, really hasn't had much luck injury-wise. Linebacker position, of course, JOK, Anthony Walker, Sione Takitaki. We know these guys are going to make the roster. Tony Fields right now is a player that is definitely trending upward. 2 positive preseason games. Tony Fields, when he's kept clean and is able to free and run around the field and make plays, Tony Fields can make plays. He did it at West Virginia, did it even before West Virginia when he was at University of Arizona. Tony Fields, there's some talent in that body. So we're going to see if the Browns can keep him, trending upwards here, as he's going to guy who could be more of a factor in 2024, still be a role player maybe in 2023, but there could be a big time opportunity in 2024 for Tony Fields. I do believe Jordan Kudizik is a lock. I think he's in a really, really good spot where he has a lot of faith in the defensive coaching staff, not to mention he's a plush special teamer. That puts Matt Adams in a really, really tough spot, in my opinion, because, if you're only going to keep 5 linebackers, you got to be able to play some of these guys. And I'm not sure how much Adams would actually take the field. Kunashik, obviously, is a guy that can take the field. Charlie Thomas, this is a wild card here right now. It's been 2 weeks in a row where you're starting to see all of this ability, and maybe it's starting to translate a little bit. And, the Browns, this could be a player where if you do cut him at those final cut downs, there's a lot of bad football teams that would love to take a gamble on a young guy who's willing to run around, wreak havoc, tackle everything, hit things hard. So Charlie Thomas, for me, could be a wild card for one that I do think the Browns will keep. Cornerback room, Denzel Ward, of course, Martin Emerson, Greg Newsome back to the practice field today, Cameron Mitchell, AJ Green, and then you have that whole slew of guys after that, a whole bunch of guys possibly competing for the 6th cornerback spot on the roster here. Normally, most teams keep 6 corners, keep 5 safeties. So that's certainly something to continue to monitor as the Browns try to figure out the way they're going to finish up that wide receiver room. Maybe with AJ Green, though, nursing the shoulder injury right now. So that's something to look out for. But the Browns cornerback room certainly looks like, they have a good handle on what that room is going to be. And it's all about 21, 23, and obviously newly minted number 0. Greg Newsome. Safety, we know Juan Thornhill is making this team. We know Rodney McLeod is making this team. We know Grant Delpit is making this team. You get to this odd spot here, though, between, D'Anthony Bell played well for this team last year, served this team well as a special teams player last year. And now here's Ronnie Hickman, this player coming off of 2 interceptions Friday night against the Washington Commanders. He is graded out really, really well under the PFF grading system. And this is a guy that I told you was the undrafted free agent out of Ohio State. There was an easy path for him to make this roster. I know there's people who like D'Anthony Bell. I know the coaching staff likes D'Anthony Bell. But when we are talking about these two players, Ronnie Hickman is 21 years old. D'Anthony Bell is 26 years old. Hickman's 21, Bell's 26. So whatever D'Anthony Bell is, that's all he's ever going to be. You can't expect this player to improve. You can't expect great strides from a guy who is 26 years old. If Ronnie Hickman is 21 years old and is grading out very well under the PFF landscape, is coming off a 2 interception game in his second preseason game, this is a slam dunk. You keep Ronnie Hickman. Ronnie Hickman is going to be the 4th safety. D'Anthony Bell, it's a tough spot to be in. And, last year the numbers favored you. This year, most likely the numbers are not going to favor you. So Ronnie Hickman, given 5 years younger in age, the pedigree of playing at Ohio State, and the advantage of a young guy, hopefully can get better with a defense creator like Jim Schwartz. This one is, obviously easy peasy. Cade York, I know many of you want somebody to come in here and compete with Cade York. Look, it's getting a little late because the Browns are playing Thursday. So when you bring in a kicker, he should have been here by now if you wanted a kicker to compete with Cade York on Thursday night against Philadelphia. And then your final preseason game is Saturday the 26th against Kansas City Chiefs. We'll see. But if Cade goes out and has a decent Thursday night, the Browns are going to have patience. Coach Stefanski years ago was with the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings grew impatient with Daniel Carlson rather quickly. They cut him after 2 games. Daniel Carlson, now with the Las Vegas Raiders, is one of the best kickers in the NFL. So they're going to give Cade the time. So if it's going to ruffle your feathers, guys, I don't know what to tell you. But for right now, I think Cade York is pretty safe. We all know Barack West is going to be the punter. Hewlett, he's been here since before me. Heck, he might still be here long snapping after I'm done. Covering the Cleveland Browns. But there is my best guesses on what it's going to look like for your Cleveland Browns final 53. And there's still some battles and obviously injuries we'll have and things will, time will tell as far as that stuff is concerned. But this is where we're at and what's left as far as roster battles right now. And we're going to get a little bit more into today's practice with the Eagles. And we have some updates. We'll get to all that. Your latest Locked On Browns continues. Appreciate you all for being along for the ride with me. Closing out your latest Locked On Browns, your host, Jeff Lloyd. As always, very much thankful to all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. And I suggest anybody new, join the everyday crowd. And the best way to do that is subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Keep your notifications on so when the content drops, you're all there to consume it. And, of course, we're always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. Text message in. Some bad news, obviously. And we'll start with the bad news, I guess, right? Sometimes we give the good first. Sometimes we give the bad first. From Philadelphia today, several players left the field. And when I say several players, I'm talking about starters. Myles Garrett, all we know, something with his foot. To the tent, quickly off the field, and take it back into the locker room. Jack Conklin, head, he is currently, I guess, being put through the concussion protocol. Denzel Ward, they're saying, left the field with illness. It's humid here today in the area, obviously, where the Browns are at, and I'm in this area, so maybe, so that's kind of where we're at here. My tweet when, and silly. Okay, I think for Myles Garrett, it was probably. It seems that, there's a tweet, and Mary Kay Cabot, thank you as for always for being on top of everything. I think Myles, it was just, maybe a fluky thing, but, when you got $100 million investment in the best defensive player in the NFL, anything weird, awkward, funky, you get him the heck out of there. My tweet about it was, pack the plane up and let's get the heck back to Ohio. As far as the practices themselves, they were absolutely dominated by defensive lines. The Browns, and this was probably good because the Browns defensive line was on a field competing as a really, really good Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. But also, while the other drills are going on, you're seeing another great NFL defensive line in the Philadelphia Eagles. So you can kind of look at one, look at the other, go back and forth, and you kind of get your read, and you kind of get a feel on where this Browns defensive line is at. Is the hype there? Is the potential of what everybody thinks this Browns defensive line could ultimately be this year? Is it there? And I think we're starting to see that is absolutely possible. There were many times Jalen Hurts hit a couple of deep balls, but he talked to anybody who was there, and I certainly got text message. I got text messages before I saw it on Twitter. It was, no, Jalen Hurts was sacked. No, Jalen Hurts was sacked. So a couple deep passes that he hit. Look, when you do this, and the Browns and the Eagles obviously have a really good relationship as far as understanding how they can look. These teams practiced together last year. These teams are practicing again this year. We all know Andrew Berry spent time there. There are personnel people that have gone from Cleveland to Philadelphia to Cleveland. We all know the way it works. So the one thing these teams are going to do when they go out there is they're going to be smart. They're not in the same conference, so they're not like they're battling anything. It's not like they're, any of this stuff. The only two ways these teams would meet this year would be the Super Bowl. So the respect is there. Let's not get each other hurt. Let's try not to get in fights. And most importantly, nobody touch anybody's quarterbacks. And that's the way it is. Deshaun Watson, plenty of receptions, completions to Amari Cooper. And of course, David Njoku. David Njoku, if you don't think it's going to be there this year, I don't know what to tell you. Nobody can cover the guy. And when David Njoku is at top form, and at times David Njoku has been his own worst problem, and it's been drops. But as this player gets, as he gets older and just gets more established from this great, phenomenal athlete becoming a true tight end, this is going to be the David Njoku year. And I'm talking 70, north of 800, north of 8 touchdowns. David Njoku is going to be an unstoppable beast this year. It's just that type of player that he is. Came into the NFL at such a young age, was so raw. There was so much more he had to learn, and all the credit in the world to him because he's put in the work. But Amari Cooper's been all over the field today. Elijah Moore out today. Look, you got dinged up ribs. You just give the guy the week off. And I'll be honest, if you want to shut Elijah Moore down, if Elijah Moore doesn't play another preseason game, I'm more than okay with that. I think we know what we've got in Elijah Moore, and I think it's just about making sure that he is 100% pristine and ready to go. Because, the one knock maybe I would say on Elijah Moore is, he's playing at maybe somewhere between 175 and 180 pounds. That is not a great weight to play football at, and you always got to be smart. Don't get hit. Because, most of the time you're going to take a lumping when you're carrying that light of a frame. So certainly, something with Elijah Moore here. We'll see how much work he gets, but my guess is mostly going to be practice work between here and when the Browns do play the Cincinnati Bengals in week 1. Greg Newsome back in the fold today on a limited basis. Kind of felt this was the case. The Browns were running sprints the last practice before the Friday night game. So you felt if he was to the point where he was pretty much running full speed, they had a good idea that he was going to be back, and there was no sense to put him in pads if he was not going to play in the Friday night game. So there you go, your status on Greg Newsome. But as far as the rest of it, Jack Conklin and the concussion, a possible concussion, you do have your worries about that, of course. Myles Garrett, look, anything at any time. So maybe these aren't very terrible injuries, and major credit to the Cleveland Browns for getting these guys off the field as fast as they possibly could. You sense something, you see something, even this tiniest thing. Look, joint practices on August 14th against Philadelphia Eagles don't mean exactly. They don't mean anything, but it's all about September 10th. It's all about that game against Cincinnati Bengals. We all know how important this beginning stretch is for the Cleveland Browns. Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Tennessee, Baltimore, bye week, San Francisco 49ers. That first 5 games in a 6-week stretch is going to define the 2023 season for the Cleveland Browns. We all know it. We're not foolish. So everything of utmost importance right now is getting these players ready to go. They'll be back at it again tomorrow. And the way this is done, and everybody trying to look for coverage or follow it on social media, there's 3 fields going at once. So there's no way anybody there has their eyes on everything. So basically, you're kind of working in unison with people. You know what I'm saying? Hey, what did you see? And you kind of sit kind of staying with your backs to each other, and somebody's watching this field, somebody's watching that field, somebody's watching that field, and you're just trying to pick up as much as you can. Again, both teams is a respect thing. Hey, let's not let these guys shoot video. The Eagles would like their stuff protected. The Browns would like their stuff protected. I think they were allowed to able to show. It wasn't one-on-ones. Obviously, it was individual parts of practice. But this is, the joint practices are a big thing because it allows you to, get in work, and you get to a certain point where as teammates, you're just aggravated with each other. You really can't go any more team drills with each other because, it's just been going on for so long. And the last thing you want is, basically for things to blow up between your own roster and have everybody basically losing on everybody else. And the next thing you know, you're jumping in there and you guys are fighting with each other, because it does happen every training camp, whether it is professional football, whether it's college football, whether it's high school football. It just reaches a certain point at training camp where everybody's kind of done with each other. And it's like, oh my God, could I please just hit somebody that I don't have to play with every day and I don't care about? It's just the way training camp works. So, as much as there were questions, and actually when I started this, all I knew was that, Miles had left, Denzel had left, and Jack Conklin had left practices. So certainly starting this was a little nervous, ain't gonna lie. But now starting to see some of the reports here. It seems like maybe for the most part here, the Browns are in a better spot. Denzel Ward did have a couple nice reps today against Devontae Smith. So obviously he got work in before he had to leave practice early. Myles Garrett was tearing it up. Along with Obo, along with Zadarius Smith. Same thing for the Philadelphia Eagles pass rushers and their interior guys. So as far as who plays Thursday night, Browns pretty much made it sounded like the good guys are not going to go Thursday night, which I'm more than okay with. Eagles, we'll see what goes on for them here. So that is where we're at after day one in Philadelphia. We try to talk a little 53-man roster here. We got you some news of the day here from Philadelphia. I am Jeff Lloyd, your host here, 7 seasons now with Locked On Browns. Appreciate everybody who has been a first listener every single day. Now join the everyday crowd. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Keep those notifications on. And of course, Locked On Browns is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on ELOB. Let's go Browns.